All right, good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started with this session. First off, congratulations on finding the room and also still being awake at this time of day, and also on getting here before it starts so we're not watching you as you walk in with the awkward doorway. This is a workshop on the rhetoric and aesthetics of school marketing and communications. My name is Patrick Halbrook. I'm co-presenting this with Jean Liechty. And our goal today is to give you some practical recommendations on how to improve your school's website and marketing strategies. And specifically, part of what we have in mind is, one, being able to bring these into better alignment with your values as a school. And second, just pursuing some strategies that have a general track record of being effective. One of the things that I hope you get out of this talk is you'll see Jean and I are coming at this from very different backgrounds. Jean has been involved in development and advancement for a long time. I'm primarily a teacher. I'm a rhetoric teacher at Cary Christian School. I also work doing graphic design. I do school websites and different things with Paideia graphic design. We do student planners, postcards, brochures, those kinds of things. My wife also works with me. She's here. Kaylee, raise your hand. Higher. You can talk to Kaylee too. But what Jean and I are both interested in, even though we have different backgrounds, we do work together, and we want to help schools find ways that articulate their mission clearly and eloquently, and help you find the right families to join in that mission. In this title, I was hoping that the title would be kind of intriguing because we combine some words that don't often go together. In our schools, of course, we talk a lot about rhetoric. We talk about truth and goodness and beauty, so that's related to aesthetics. But those things aren't always part of the conversation when it comes to marketing. Maybe part of our marketing is saying that we teach rhetoric, but my question is, how are we doing in actually learning rhetoric and implementing those principles when we do our marketing or design our websites? When we talk about truth and goodness and beauty, are our materials that we're producing and printing and our websites, are they actually attractive? Are they actually beautiful in some way, in a way that communicates that value that we have as a school? So at most of our schools, I suspect this is an area where we have some room for growth. And my hope is that by the end of this workshop, you can walk away with some practical ideas about how to do that. Here's a brief outline of how the talk's going to work. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the nature of rhetoric, how it relates to graphic design. We'll try to keep it nice and simple at this late time of day. After that, we're going to turn our attention to school websites. Jean is going to come up and talk about websites from his perspective as a director of advancement. And then I'll get up again and share my perspective as a rhetoric teacher and graphic designer. And then finally, you'll get to hear from Jean again, as he's going to talk about how to actually get people to your website and some strategies he's used that he's found helpful. And then at the end, we'll have some time for question and answer. I also wanted to mention that these slides are online on my website, which is paideiagraphics.com. And as you're leaving today, feel free to take one of these bookmarks/business cards. I'll leave a pile over here and then some more over here. You can grab one as you're heading out. So I thought we'd start today at the place where my rhetoric students begin on day one. Class, does anyone know what rhetoric is? I won't cold call on any of you, but let's start with some basic definitions. Here's the one that probably gets quoted the most. Rhetoric is the faculty of discovering in any given case the available means of persuasion. That's the traditional translation of Aristotle. We'll unpack that in a minute. Here's a couple other great definitions. The art of enchanting the soul, as Plato put it. Or Cicero's definition, speech designed to persuade. And of course, when we talk about marketing today, you can go and get a degree in marketing, you can read books on marketing. And that's really just a form of rhetoric and rhetorical communication, something that people have been talking about since the ancient Greeks. Let's unpack this definition from Aristotle for a little bit. I'm not crazy about this, the way it's worded, but the faculty of discovering just means having the skill of being able to discern something or figure something out in any given case. With my students, I talk about how if you're talking to different audiences, you're going to present your message in a different way. If you're talking to students versus adults, if you're talking in a serious situation versus something that's a little more casual, that's going to be different as well. And discovering or figuring out, whatever the situation, the available means of persuasion. If persuasion has tools, it's figuring out which tools to use. All of us, of course, engage in rhetorical communication, whether we've studied it or not, because it's not a set of some kind of techniques that someone invented. It's really more a description of what we already do. So all of us already engage in rhetoric. All of us engage in rhetorical communication. The study of rhetoric is about studying it as an art so we can figure out how to do it a little bit better. We might also describe rhetoric as the art of communicating with clarity and grace. And while we tend to focus on the speeches and the presentations, so with my students, they're writing thesis papers and they are doing lots of writing, and then they're getting up and they're doing lots of practicing for that big senior thesis speech. Those are the things that we tend to focus on, but we might also describe a category of visual rhetoric. And for schools, that might be websites, print materials, maybe brochures, postcards, other things that we make. We could even get into the design of the school itself and what the classroom walls look like. Think about TV commercials, billboards, brochures, PowerPoint presentations. These are all attempts to combine words and images and other elements of design in order to do what? Express a rhetorical message. And when we think about this, we also want to remember that a message doesn't operate independently of its visual elements, as if the graphics are just some medium, it's just some package in which the message is contained. Go up to your literature teacher at your school and try saying, yeah, you know what, a poem, that's just a message packaged in nice sounding words, that's all, and see what kind of reaction you get. No, that's not what it is. As Marshall McLuhan and Neil Postman remind us, the medium is the message. And so whether we're talking about a poem or graphic design, the message is bound up in the form in which it's communicated. And so each of these three elements, whether written or oral or visual rhetoric, have elements that will determine how an audience receives that message. So think about your students when they're practicing for a speech. They want to have good eye contact, right? They want to emphasize their points with hand gestures. The intonation of their voice should communicate the importance and the tone of how they want something to be received. Or if they're writing a paper, think of how the paper's formatted and making sure they're using good grammar and spelling and all of that. And those things can make or break a speech or even a paper. When you think about graphic design, how does an audience experience your words? Not through the intonation of your voice, but through your choice of font or typeface, if you want to sound a little fancier. Your color schemes. Instead of arranging the chronological order in which you're going to say or write something, you've got to make choices about the visual layout of the page. And then you add in the images, the photos, the symbolism, iconography, all of those things that are worth 1,000 words. Even the user interface of a computer program or a website, all of this goes into visual rhetoric. And like rhetoric in its written and oral forms, visual rhetoric has great potential to enhance or undermine any act of communication. So with all these principles in mind, let's come back to our basic marketing goal. What are we trying to do? Well, we want to increase the visibility of our school and our community. We want to do so in a way that increases the number and or the quality of the students who are coming to our school so that we can grow, maybe maintain enrollment. Most important marketing tool is the school's website. And so at this point, I'm going to take a seat and invite Gene to come up and talk about some basic strategies from his perspective as a director of advancement on how we can build and use our school websites.
Thank you. Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I was going to say just piggybacking off of, oh, by the way, do I just push this advance button to scroll through?
Yep.
Right here?
Yep.
Okay. I was just going to say that in addition to doing marketing so you can accomplish all these purposes Patrick just described, like advancing the visibility of a school and a community, and talking about how that helps with enrollment, getting more people in the pipeline who are interested in applying to the school and other things. It really helps on the development side as well. So advancement is that fancy word that you use if your office includes not only the marketing, but also the development or the fundraising. So at the schools that I've been serving, I'm in charge of both, right? Creating a stream of income outside of tuition. Anything that comes in that's not a tuition dollar comes in through my office. We have several programs. We're running different campaigns, but it's either tuition dollars or it's development dollars. Those are the only kinds of dollars that come into a school. All right. So getting back to and piggybacking off of what Patrick was saying, it's very difficult to be successful in development if nobody in the community knows about your school. And this is why these things are combined. If I'm sitting down with a prospective donor and I'm talking about how our school, Cary Christian School or Sandhills Classical Christian School, is the greatest thing since sliced bread and canned peaches. And if they respond by saying, if the school's so great, why have I never heard of you? I'm already starting the conversation here at a deficit, right? So I have a very vested interest in making sure that the marketing is going well in the community so that I can accomplish what I need to accomplish as far as goals go in development. And I think that's part of the reason these things are combined into advancement, because I want to kind of superintend both at the schools that I serve. So anyway, getting back to this slide, and I apologize, I'm going to scroll through a couple of slides. We're going to be scrolling down the homepage of my school's website. And I was afraid, I really wanted to make this live so we could actually scroll, but I wasn't sure what kind of a signal I was going to get in the room. And technology makes me nervous. And so I just decided to do it this way. But a couple of things before we even start to scroll. Your website is the most important tool in your toolbox. And the homepage, I would argue, is the most important page on the website. Obviously, you've got to capture the attention of someone. The site needs to be aesthetically pleasing. It needs to be easy to navigate. It needs to be sort of intuitive. And this comes to your drop-down menu and the categories and your subcategories that way. But it also needs to list your distinctives, and it needs to be captivating. There may be, and so we're looking at that. Now, on this particular website, the photo behind this word screen, the photos keep changing on the site. If it was live, you'd be able to see that. But we use our school colors. And we also have on our homepage of our site, we have a lot of call outs. So click here to learn more. A little further down, you're going to see click here to apply now. At another spot, you're going to see click here to schedule a tour. So there's a lot going on the homepage. We got one chance to make a really good impact, to make it look like we know what we're doing, to display our distinctives, to do it in a way that's aesthetically pleasing, getting back to the rhetoric of things. So at the very top of our website, we have a logo. We have some information, just some very generic information about the school itself. Speaking of trying to get their attention and be a little bit captivating, this is something that the Good Soil Report. How many people in here have heard of the Good Soil Report? Yeah, most of you. This is one of the most significant things that we use in marketing the school. It's in every tour package. There's a report, again, Notre Dame University, the Cardis Group put it together, but it's an outcome study. We had this buried on our website. It was on our website, but you had to search to find it. So we tease it on the homepage of our website, and we even put a couple of graphics on there. But it's an outcome study, right? How much difference can a good school make? So we put it up there, and we've had really good success with getting people to apply, schedule tours, mission accomplished in regard to some of the changes to the site. This is a site that's only been up for 6 months. So every 4 or 5 years, we completely redo our website. Every year, we refresh the site with new photos. But every 4 or 5 years, we completely reinvent it to keep it new and fresh. The third thing you see as you scroll down is an opportunity to enroll, and we lay it out real easy. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Visit the school, apply, And then after that, there's a family interview and there's an assessment for your kids. It's very simple and you can apply right there. As you scroll down a little further, we're missing a huge chunk over here, but this is where I typically put our school video. Every other year, we put together a video. We have a couple of guys come into the school, capturing teachers teaching, kids learning, lots of kids laughing, the community. We try and demonstrate that we're a community of faith on there. But anyway, there's a video that goes here. But again, scholastic achievement and life outcomes. What are our test scores? How do our kids do? Where do they matriculate to? What colleges do they go to? We put a lot that was buried on the homepage without making the homepage too long. And then here, again, distinctives. We're a classical school. Our DNA's in our name at our school, Sandhills Classical Christian School. You can see that there, but a lot of folks don't know what classical is. Half of our families that have had kids enrolled at our school for 5 years don't really still understand what classical is. But anyway, on the homepage of our website, we divide it up for you. Grammar, logic, rhetoric. If you want to learn more about grammar because you have a rising second grader that's you're considering bringing into the school, then click there. So we also have a preschool with 150 students. So we connect our website to that website because that's a completely different site. And then testimonials for families, just talking about their experience with the school, what they love about it. You want to keep those on there. And at the bottom, you see that call out for scheduling a tour. So anyway, we're trying to apply some of the very principles that Patrick just talked about, make it aesthetically pleasing, call out our distinctives. You know what differentiates us from the other schools that are part of our community. We have 7 private schools in our town, and our county only has 100,000 people in it. So, and my job has been to, one of my jobs has been to grow the school by 50 to 60 students a year with like-minded families. So when I started in the fall of 2019, we had 250 students. This fall we'll have 700, and we're building for 900 at the school. So arguably large, right? But anyway, the website, most important tool in your marketing toolbox. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about how do you get people to the website. So the goal is to get them to the website, but then beyond that, you want to get them to schedule a tour. I don't know about you and your experience, but at Cary Christian School, where I started, at Logos School in Moscow, Idaho, down in San Luis Obispo at Christ Classical School, and now at Sandhills, if a family visits, if I can get them on campus, I've got about a 90% close rate. So if I can get you, now we don't always, through the family interview, maybe they're not all a good fit. But my job as the marketing guy is to make sure that the funnel is filled with applicants and the right kinds of applicants, the people that appreciate us for our distinctives, for our DNA. It's not enough to grow a school. You want to grow a school in the right kind of way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But right now, I just wanted to take you through a website that's compelling, or we think is. So sound a little proud here, but we've been doing this for 23 years. So, and we're always continuing to work on our craft, improve what we're doing, and we learn from others as well. But you want a site that has that really does a good job, since you got one shot at it, of keeping their attention, that really puts your best foot forward. And we'd argue that this is that kind of site. So anyway, back to you, Patrick.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Gene. Welcome back to rhetoric class. On day 1, we discussed the definition of rhetoric. There will be a quiz later before you leave the room. On day 2, we're learning about the 3 modes of persuasion. And let's see if you know these. I'll give you the first one: logos and
Pathos.
ethos. Pathos. Yes. Logos, ethos, and pathos. Every act of rhetorical communication contains these 3 elements in some way. Logos is the logical appeal, so logos, logic. This is the rationale for accepting a claim. This is the part that appeals to our minds. Pathos is the emotional appeal. It's the part that speaks to our hearts, that provokes a feeling that motivates us toward accepting a claim. And ethos appeals to a speaker's credibility and trustworthiness. It opens us up to become more receptive to a claim because of our high opinion of the source. When you're thinking about planning content for your school website, it can be helpful to think in these terms. And again, because rhetoric is, it's not a technique someone invented, it's just a description of what we already do. You're probably already doing this to some degree, but I think it can be helpful to go through this kind of systematically, because maybe you can see, oh, well, maybe the logos is really good on our school website, but we could improve the ethos a bit. And when we think about the pathos, maybe we're sending mixed messages. So thinking in these three categories can be helpful. I'm just going to give you a series of questions to ask yourself. And again, this PowerPoint is on my website, paideagraphics.com. There's a link at the top. You can download it. So feel free to write really fast or check that out later. But this could be a helpful checklist as you're, one, evaluating your current website to see how you think it comes across. And then second, if you're planning a new website or a major revision, or even a light revision, you could think of this list. So these are the questions that a prospective family is going to have in mind as they're visiting your site, or even having a discussion on a tour or something like that. Why should I send my child to this school, right? This is the logical argument. Give me some reasons. Give me some reasons. They're going to be wondering, is this a place of academic excellence? Does it show results? And so for each of our schools, we want to think through, okay, what are they looking for when they think about academic excellence? But then also, how do we want to communicate how we view that? Parents are going to be wondering, does this school share our family's values? How are you going to communicate that? A lot of them come looking for extracurriculars. If you have an athletics page and you look at the metrics of your site to see the most visited pages, athletics is probably in the top 5, at least the top 10. They're also going to be wondering about fine arts, clubs, those sorts of things as well. And then just generally what makes this school unique. And like I tell my students, don't just make assertions in your paper or your speech or your senior thesis. Back it up with some kind of evidence. Give illustrations. Okay? Give us some evidence, some examples of what this looks like, so that people can see, okay, yeah, there is some basis for it. So those are some questions that are either explicit or implicit as people are looking at your website when it comes to, okay, convince me. But then there's also the pathos, the emotional appeal as well. And this is part of the value of having pictures and videos and those kinds of things. How do I feel about this school? How do the photos and the videos make me feel? A lot of that's going to determine on how the students in the photos and videos, how do they look like they feel at the school? What does it feel like to be a student here? And this is where video testimonials can go a long way, having students and parents and others talk about the school. And then this has a little less to do with the content that you're putting forward as much as the overall design of the site. This is the visual rhetoric aspect, because your branding, your colors, your fonts, typography, the user experience of how it feels to browse through your site. Is it frustrating to find information? That's going to evoke a feeling, and that's going to shape someone's feelings about the school. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute when we talk about ethos. But for now, I want you to picture this scenario. You walk into a classroom at a school, and the first thing you see on the wall is this nice picture frame, and it's got those 3 words framed that we all love: truth and goodness, and what's our third one? Beauty, right? Truth and goodness and beauty. And you walk in, oh, what a great classroom. And you look around the room and you see trash on the floor, and you see books falling off the bookshelf. And you look at the teacher's desk, and all of the graded and ungraded and lost papers are all over the desk everywhere. And the blinds are broken, and the walls full of, those teacher posters that have cheesy graphics and the words are too small for anyone to possibly read. Those are up all over the walls. And then you look back at that framed picture: truth and goodness and beauty. What's going to be sending a stronger emotional message to you about how beauty is valued in that classroom? How it looks, or the fact that it says beauty in a word on the wall? Well, we can make the same mistake with our websites and marketing materials, right? We can say all kinds of great things, but the way it's presented visually can either enhance that or it can undermine it. And that leads us well into the third aspect of rhetoric. So logos, the logical argument, pathos, connecting with the emotions, and then third, ethos, which has to do with credibility. And I teach my students, we can divide this up into three sections. What is it that makes someone credible, that makes someone trustworthy? Well, we could talk about phronesis, Greek word that points us to the idea of good sense. So this would be when you're at the doctor's office and maybe it's a new place and you're kind of nervous and you look up on the wall and they've got their medical school diploma on the wall, and maybe that feels a little bit better, like, okay, this is someone who's got the training they need. Then we could talk about arete, moral excellence. This is when you've got a new babysitter, but she's been recommended by 5 different people who can vouch for her character. You go, okay, she knows what she's doing. And then eunoia, that's goodwill. So this is kind of hospitality. This is when you have a guest speaker at your church who comes up and starts out by saying just how overjoyed he is to be there with all of you today. And these 3 go into the category of credibility. So here's a few questions that your parents will have, prospective families, again, either explicitly or maybe just implicitly in the back of their mind. They're wondering, can I trust this school? Well, what goes into trusting the school? Is this a place of professionalism, competence, expertise? Do they have phronesis or good sense? This really overlaps. Some of these overlap. This overlaps with the academic excellence portion. Is this a place of integrity that practices what it preaches, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do through a website, but oftentimes testimonials can be a helpful way to not just assert, yeah, we're a really super awesome Christian school, but maybe we have some examples to back that up. And then also, and this is where I want to camp out for a minute, just from my perspective as a website designer, do the site's messaging and user-friendly design make me feel valued and welcomed? And this would be eunoia or goodwill. If you think about the last time you prepared for an open house, okay, you had those floors swept, you had all the classrooms nice and neat, you had everything hopefully just right. You were probably scrambling around a little bit at the last minute to get ready, but you're having guests and you want them to feel welcome. And your website is basically an open house that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the people coming there are your guests, and you want them to feel like they're welcome and that you're ready for them to be there. Let me share a couple common problems that can actually be solved pretty easily when it comes to websites. I decided to do a little experiment preparing for this talk. I look at school websites a lot. I decided to take all of the schools and ACCS schools in North Carolina. There's 16, and our school's 1. And I thought that was a manageable number to look at. And so I just thought, okay, I'll look at these. I'll look for any patterns or trends of things that could be fixed pretty easily. And 2 of them are websites that I manage. So all of the problems and mistakes I'm going to tell you are ones that I've found on my own sites from time to time. So this is not accusatory. All names have been changed to protect the websites with problems. 25% of the sites had spelling errors on their home pages. I didn't even look at the other sites. 1 school misspelled their own name. If you're in North Carolina, you're going to be looking yours up right now. I don't know if anyone in here or not. One of them misspelled the term scholastic achievement. Reminded me of, we had an election for school board in North Carolina recently where one of the candidates passed out flyers that said, "Our focus must return to academics," and the word academics was misspelled. She didn't win. So a quarter have spelling errors just on there. That's something you can figure out by just looking at the site. Pay your rhetoric teacher to proofread it. Coding errors. This is where there's some kind of HTML or PHP code or something from a broken WordPress plugin that shows up. 12% of the sites I looked at had coding errors on them, just usually at the top, sometimes at the bottom. Broken links. This can be tricky because oftentimes you'll write a blog article and then you link to a news site, and then at some point the new site goes away and it doesn't work anymore. Or once in a while, more seriously, maybe you've got a link to here's our school handbook or information about tuition assistance. And suddenly that PDF kind of disappears, or maybe you never linked it right in the first place. And you're left wondering, like, how many years has this been wrong? There's actually a really good tool I recommend. There's a few of these, but if you use the website deadlinkchecker.com, it will actually crawl your entire site for you, and it'll make a list of any broken links, which is just where someone clicks and it doesn't go anywhere. So I'll have this up with some resources again at the end, but deadlinkchecker.com, and you can find where hopefully it was right when you put the link up, but maybe it's gone dead. 92% of sites had broken links on them. The record was 83 broken links. So check yours out. That's actually pretty easy to fix. That's a good thing to run maybe every couple of months. It's easy to leave up outdated content. One school had a note about how they were excited that spring break was coming up. This was last week. Blog articles, often, you know how it works. You're really excited about your blog, and first you're writing every week, and then you're writing every other week, and then you're writing every other month, and then your last update was in 2017. And the tricky thing here is that you want those articles up because it helps drive traffic to your website, but it's kind of embarrassing when your last update was a long time ago. So actually, my recommendation is just take the dates off of the blog articles. And then unless someone's looking at your site a lot, if it's a new family, they'll have no idea probably if you wrote it last week or a few months ago. I personally think that's a better strategy than just taking them off. Or you could get back to updating it every week like you had great dreams of doing at one point. Look up your website on Google. There's always going to be your site and then a description. The description will either just pull something random from your homepage, or you can work with your web designer to set what it's going to say. You don't want it to say what one school's website says, which is no information is available about this page. I think I know why it's doing that, but you don't want that to happen. Make sure key information is easy to find. One thing I realized recently is a lot of schools, it's actually hard to find what grade levels they teach. And for all of us, it's so obvious what our grade levels are, we might not think about it. But about a quarter of the schools I look at, it took me at least a minute or two to find, is this K through 12? Is it K through 8? Like which grades do they teach? And then one more suggestion is test your contact forms regularly. One site I was looking at, this wasn't an ACCS school, so you guys are off the hook, but it was a contact form, and it had the little button, you know, I'm not a robot, check this. And that thing was broken, so you couldn't actually check it. And so they didn't have an email up either, and there's also no phone number. So there's no way to actually get in touch with the school. And I ended up somehow contacting them through LinkedIn, and they saw my message like a month later. But sometimes contact forms they can just go bad. There's different reasons why that might happen. And then suddenly people have been emailing you for a few weeks and you didn't realize it. So just test them once in a while. It's pretty easy to do. Here's the bottom line. Oh, one other tip is just making sure your site looks good, not just on your laptop, but also a tablet and also on the phone. It should be responsive. Check each page. The bottom line is you don't need the fanciest, most expensive website in the world. But if your website's like that open house, you just want people to see that your messaging, your user-friendly design, make them feel valued, make them feel welcomed, and indicate that at least every couple of weeks you're taking a look at your website. All right, now before I pass it back to Jean, I want to touch on one more aspect of school websites, and that is the artistic or the aesthetic perspective. Aesthetics is just a realm of philosophy that studies beauty. A couple of years ago, I was reading this book, Beauty, A Very Short Introduction by Roger Scruton. He was a British philosopher, wrote a lot of really great stuff. A lot of it's really deep, some of it's over my head. But I was very excited when he actually I wasn't expecting this at all. He mentioned something about websites. Not what I was expecting, but I loved what he had to say. Let me read it to you. He says, things can often be compared and ranked according to their beauty. And there's also a minimal beauty in the lowest degree, which might be a long way from the sacred beauties of art and nature, which are discussed by the philosophers. There is an aesthetic minimalism exemplified by laying the table, tidying your room. Here it is, designing a website, which seems at first sight quite remote from the aesthetic heroism exemplified by Bernini's Saint Teresa in Ecstasy or Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. You don't wrestle over these things as Beethoven wrestled over the late quartets, nor do you expect them to be recorded for all time among the triumphs of artistic achievement. Nevertheless, you want the table, the room, or the website to look right. And by looking right, and looking right matters in the way that beauty generally matters, not by pleasing the eye only, but by conveying meanings and values which have weight for you and which you are consciously putting on display. Beauty in this scenario doesn't mean your website is a work of art you're going to hang in a museum. It doesn't mean you've necessarily busted your budget paying for it. It doesn't have to be showy, but it should be fitting, right? There should be a harmony between its form and its purpose. And we should all think deeply about what are the meanings and values that we want to consciously put on display for people to see. How can you improve your rhetoric, including your visual rhetoric, to more faithfully capture your identity and ideals at a school? I'm going to give just a couple brief examples of a couple things that we've worked on to try to just improve the meaning and values of what schools are trying to communicate. My first example is a few months ago, I worked with Charleston Classical School to redesign their logo. This was the logo they had previously. It had come from a professional graphic designer. They didn't feel like the designer really got what they were trying to do as a classical school, but they went ahead and went with it because they had it done, and they were just K through 2 when they started. So it kind of works for the lower grades. But as they were growing, as they were expanding, they wanted something that looked a little more mature, a little more appropriate for older grades. And this is the redesign that we did. We wanted something that was continuous with the previous logo. We wanted to keep the tree idea. We kept the same fonts. We just rearranged them a little bit. We used darker colors. We used more mature tree. We didn't do the thing with the people with the leaves. And so we just wanted something that had a little more weight and a little more serious to it, while also having continuity with the previous design. Also, earlier this year, we helped redesign the website for Cary Christian School. And a lot of our recent conversations around marketing have focused around the insight that our families aren't just interested in academic excellence, though they are, but our community and having families joining a community really is a big part of what people are looking for. So we use this phrase, where families flourish. This is a picture of one of our graduates and his parents. I had actually originally found a stock photo that had a really great kind of arrangement of people in it. And so our rough draft had that stock photo. And then we had a photo taken with a kind of similar pose that we were able to use that worked well. But it's still, with the graduation cap and gown, right? It still conveys academic excellence, but also brings in this idea of community and family. Let me give you one more example. This one is maybe just for fun, but it's not a website I designed. It's not a classical school. I'm going to warn you, if you have any aesthetic sensibilities at all, you're going to find it highly disturbing. There's your trigger warning. Here it is. Okay. This is not a teenager's MySpace page from 2006, if you remember those. This is not a GeoCities site from 1996, if you remember those. This is the current website for the Yale School of Art. If you pull it up right now, this is what you'll see. And if you keep going through the pages, it gets worse. What are they doing? What are they doing? Okay, here's their explanation for why it looks this way. Our goal was to give the School of Art a website that would change every day with no staff to do this. We made the entire website editable and expandable by all 200 plus students, staff, and faculty with no training, using only a web browser. It's a custom-built wiki that allows visual as well as textual expression through a system of versatile modules, which allows both a consistent identity for the site and endless permutation and subversion of that identity. Oh, well, if that's what you're doing. In other words, anything goes, no standards, no concern for anyone except for what the artist is doing. And I actually can't think of a better way to describe the state of contemporary art. Can you? Like, in one sense, this is a horrendous travesty. In another sense, it's actually a good website in the sense that it conveys what they're all about, right? I don't know if I'd call it beautiful, but it does kind of do that. One other thing that I want to mention about it, and you probably can't read it from where you are, if you took away all the images and all the design features and you just left us with the text, it would read just like any other website. And that's the power of graphic design. So let me end before Jean comes back up one more time by just coming back to this quote. You want the table, the room, or the website to look right, and looking right matters in the way that beauty generally matters, not by pleasing the eye only, but by conveying meanings and values which have weight for you and which you are consciously putting on display. So is your school's website beautiful? That's the task for our websites. Once you have a beautiful website, your task isn't done. Now you still need people to find it and look at it. And so I'm going to invite Jean to come back up and recommend some great ways to make that happen.
All right. Thanks, Patrick. So I've been doing advancement work for 23 years. And back in the day, back when I started, my first school was Cary Christian School. And back in the day, we relied a lot more on print, print advertising, brochures, big brochures, booklets on our schools, very expensive way to do things. We've really moved away from that. All that to say, this card, this flip card, this 4x6 or 5x7 flip card today is the only piece of print collateral that I design annually. And it costs me, even to print 1,000 of them, just a couple $100. Speaking of dollars and cents, I did want to say a lot of the questions that I get asked revolve around how much do you spend? If you're trying to add 50 or 60 students a year, if that's the task before you, because that's what the board has set, for me, they're my bosses collectively. How much do you spend on marketing? And I said, as a general rule of thumb, I would say half a tuition. So I spend half a tuition to add 50 to 60 students because we've got space and we've got seats and we're building for that. So we're at $10,400 a year at Sandhills Classical Christian School. So my budget is $5,000 and I regularly come in under that unless it's one of the years, every other year when I'm putting a video together, a new video, because that costs a little bit more. But having said all that, we're at the place now where we're talking about, we've moved beyond the website itself and the importance of a website and what your site ought to look like and things to avoid. We're now talking about what drives you to the website. And this one piece of print collateral, this tool that's in front of us now, has been highly effective in getting families to the school. And I'll say right from the onset, it's one thing to design a nice little 5x7 or 4x6 flip card. It's another thing to know how to use it as a tool. Where does it get distributed? What do you do with it? But before I even go to the flip side of the card, I wanted to, and getting back to some of the things that Patrick was talking about, look at the images here, right? So there's nothing static. There's nothing more boring than just having a line of kids, sort of like the class photo, all standing, staring at the camera. And that's what's across the front of your home. The only thing that conveys to me is that you wear uniforms, right? But there's no story there, right? What you want is teachers teaching and pouring themselves into kids, like we have Mr. Blackburn there. You have kids working at a desk. We want to display that we have athletics. Sometimes every year we do a different card. Sometimes it's the arts. Sometimes it's drama that's on there. But we're trying to give you a picture through images of what life is like at the school and some of the offerings we have. And the truth, beauty, and goodness ought to be demonstrated in the images. Patrick, by the way, of course, designed this card, Paideia Graphic Design. the back of this card doesn't need to say very much. Look at the brevity of text, right? We're driving them to the website. The website has 48 pages of text on it. All we need to do is get them there. So for the back of this card, all I have is our vision statement, our mission statement, and I have a couple of distinctives letting them know the full orb type of education that their child will receive if they come to the school. And then I have some action items, just like you have on the homepage of your website. Hey, for more information, just click your phone over this QR code. It'll take you to the homepage of the website, right? We're driving them to the website. Or if you don't have an iPhone, here's our website if you want to just plug it in yourself, or to schedule a tour, call this number right here. So this card is a call to action. Right? Now, here's the question. So I've got a card. What do I do with it? How do I distribute it throughout the community? I'm pleased with it. It represents the school really well. But what do I do with it? It's funny. In addition to working as the advancement director at Sandhills Classical Christian School, I'm also one of the consultants with Concordus Education Partners. So we're working with 40 schools right now that are opening this fall, or just opened last year, or maybe opened a year or two prior to that. And so when we're working to make sure they have a healthy start, maybe start with 30 or 40, 50, 60 students, and we start a year ahead, when we get to this point where we're designing a card form and the website's all up, they'll say, well, how many cards do we need? And I'll say, well, a minimum of 500, but you'll probably need to reorder, I'm thinking 1,000 over the next year. And they'll say, no, we're just really small. We haven't even opened our doors yet. And I'll say, yeah, let me talk to you a little bit about distribution. And then once we're done with this conversation, you'll know why you need a minimum of 500 of these cards in the community. And they'll say, okay, I'm all ears. Tell me how we're supposed to do this thing. And I'll ask them, how many Christian preschools do you have in your community? And most often they say, we don't know. And I'll say, well, go find out. And I guarantee you that every one of these Christian preschools that doesn't have a grammar school attached to it, so you're going into K1, 2, 3, are going to be willing throughout the year to send this card home in the take-home folder with their rising kindergartners. It's a service to the families. The families want to know about this new education option, or maybe for some of you here, it's not a new option because your school's been in existence for 10 years. But there are families in the community that aren't aware of Tyndale Classical Academy as a viable option for their child. And so a lot of those schools, they'll be graduating out of their preschool between 10 and 30 or 40 kindergartners. And I get rid of, in my small town, in my county alone, I get rid of about 250 of these cards by sending them home through preschool directors. I develop a relationship with the preschool director. This goes beyond the topic of discussion here just a little bit. But we always send them at Christmas. We send them to all the administrative staff. You know, they get a canteen of coffee and they get some sweets. We invite them into the school so they can see how faithfully we're advancing the children that they brought into our schools. So we talk about a partnership with them. And I remember at Cary Christian School in the early days, and we had about 60 seats to fill, 3 sections of kindergarten. A significant percentage of the children, because we didn't have a preschool at Cary Christian School, a significant percent of the children entering kindergarten, we could trace back to that relationship with those Christian preschools. Let me emphasize Christian, okay? You don't need a lot of chaff to wade through when you're doing family interviews and things. If they're not sending them to a Christian preschool, it's unlikely that it's less likely, let me say, that they're as aligned with you in regards to what's true, good, and beautiful, and will love you for all the reasons they ought to be loving you, your distinctives. So preschools is one thing, lots of preschools. Another thing that we do is we put these out in churches for a couple months of the year. We ask churches at the nursery where you're checking in kids for church, or on the information table at the church. We'll say, we'll just ask, can we for 2.5 months put this out there? We're not asking the church to endorse our school over any other Christian school. We just want your families to know that we're out there as an option if you're interested in Christian education, right? Now, if I, as an administrator, as a foreigner to the pastoral staff or the church office administrator, if I call and ask if I can put these in the church, either by the nursery check-in where parents are just standing around waiting their turn, or on the information table, there's only about a 40% chance. This is what I found over about 20 years. There's about a 40% chance that I'll be able to do it on my own. But if I go through facts, because we're a Ren Web school, and I can tell where all my families go to church, right? And if I get a tithing member of the church in good standing to make the same request, just taking the card in, it jumps to about 80 to 90%. And so you got to be strategic. You got to think a little bit. But we have hundreds of cards in about 10, 12 churches, especially during the open enrollment period of the year. So that's another place. Another thing, all of our families at the school get this card, and we ask everybody to, you don't need to be able to write an article on classical. We have a lot of enthusiastic parents, praise God. They're willing to share, or at least get a card. Give a card to a neighbor, a colleague, someone that they go to church with, and say, hey, we're really pleased with the education our kids are getting. Just consider this. Take a look. Here's the card, right? Also, local businesses. Think about where moms with children sit for long periods of time. Pediatrician, pediatric dentist, orthodontist. We put cards in local businesses. Some of those local businesses are owned by some of our parents. Now, if you're putting one of these cards in an orthodontist's office, make sure you go on to Amazon and buy one of those plastic brochure holders. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time. Because what happens is they're sitting in there for about 3 hours, and Mrs. Smith comes in, and her daughter Susie, who's 3, knocks them all off the table. 7 hours later, the cleaning crew comes in, and they throw them all away. And that impact lasted all of 2.5 hours in the orthodontist's office. So you're going to want to, and they're going to be more receptive if you go in there and say, hey, would you allow us? And they're set really beautifully in a folder or in a holder itself. So that's another place these can be placed. And then another idea for promo cards, and this was really successful in Moscow, Idaho. I've experienced success with it other places too, but it's a very contained community. There are 5 real estate companies that sell most of the houses and engage new people moving in. But even in the 21st century, with websites and online ads and everything else, real estate companies still have folders with parks and rec guides and things like that. So when you go into Caldwell Bankers in your local town and you're looking for a home, they're going to give you a packet, and it's going to have lots of information in it. But they 100%, just like the preschools, are going to say, absolutely, give me 30 of those, and we're going to stuff them in the envelopes that we have. And that way, when a new family comes into town, they'll be aware immediately without even going onto a website or doing a Google search or going to the Chamber of Commerce, where you ought to be listed, by the way. You ought to be listed with the Chamber of Commerce under education. But again, all these are ways to drive you to the website, and all of this helps explain why even a small school or a startup school needs a minimum of 500 of these. Most often you need about 1,000. And every year we change it up. Sometimes it's not always growing in virtue and knowledge. Of course, we're always doing that, but sometimes it says on there, training up the next generation of Christian leaders. Every year it changes, but the beauty of it remains the same. The photos, the compelling images, pictures that tell a story, they're always a part of it. So that's one thing that we use to drive folks to a website. Another thing, these are just samples. Again, Patrick and Paideia Graphic Design did these, but we strategically place online ads, right? Again, not a lot of information on the ad at all, because all they need to do is click on the ad. It's an online ad, right? It takes you right to the homepage of the website, which is what we're trying to do, drive them there. So we have something in our county, I'll bet you do too, or in your local town. We have something called, I live in Moore County, North Carolina, and we have a website called morechoices.net. It's More Choices. And lots of families go on there with young kids because they have all the parks, recs, information. They talk about upcoming events that would be interesting for families. They talk about sports offerings and clubs that way. It's a very family-friendly site. We're all over that website. We're on several pages, and we're on the homepage during the open enrollment period of the year, typically the end of January all the way up into the 1st of May, and just driving folks to a website. So anyway, that's all I've got. That's all I've got right now. So
Okay. We got a couple minutes for questions, and then I know we'll be eager to head out. Questions?
yeah.
Staff members, administrative team members who are new to their jobs for mentorship?
What would you say?
Yeah, that's not an area, sadly, that's not an area. I create the traffic for those folks, but I'm not as familiar with the ins and outs of what they do in regard to the enrollment process. I do know this, and Cary Christian School's been doing this for a while. It's really impactful, but we're starting an ambassador program this next year where we're touring families, of course, every single week, year round. We're touring families. We try and minimize it in the summer if we can, because none of the students are there. So the life is sort of sucked out of the campus, and it's 4 buildings and courtyards and playing fields, but there aren't even teachers around. But we're starting a program where a few of our upperclassmen are going to be conducting the tours and talking about their experience and answering questions. Someone named Margaret Finnegan has developed a really good program at Cary Christian School for that, and we're not going to reinvent the wheel. Margaret has been kind enough, so this fall we're starting something like that. But we're always thinking about how to do it better, right? How to make the process more simple. I know that before some basic things, I know that before we do a family interview, we do an assessment of the kids. You want to keep it in that order. Yeah.
Gene,
Yes.
I think Gene meant to recommend Margaret Finnegan as that person.
What did I say?
You didn't mention Margaret as the admissions person. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's an admissions director. And Margaret, sorry, I know her so well from working with her, and she's just a personal friend. I didn't mention her, but yeah, she's the admissions director at Cary Christian School, but she's helped develop out this ambassador program that I was, speaking of. So.
Yeah.
What's your view on virtual tours?
Virtual tours.
Doing that.
Yeah, I think everyone did one during COVID, and since then I haven't seen much. I mean, our main goal is get people in the door. So if that's something that could, like some kind of 3D video or something like that, if it seems like that's going to help, then that'd be great. We wouldn't want it to replace an actual tour.
Yeah.
I don't have any hard evidence on statistically how it affects that, though.
Well, it's hard to customize a virtual tour, right? So if you've got a rising first and second grader, we're going to take you over to our primary school building because you're going to want to see what the other first and second graders look like, and you're going to want to see those teachers in action. We used to just have Welcome Wednesdays, and we clump people together in big groups. But we have an admissions director, and this fall we'll have other people available to tour, and people like that customized treatment. They're less likely to ask the questions they really want to ask if they're in a group with 5 other families. So it's efficient to do it that way. But we're working hard to bring families in and welcome them and love them well. And part of that is giving them an experience that's unique and that really answers the questions that they have and allows them to see what they want to see at any particular time.
It is 4:45. We're happy to stick around a couple of minutes to answer some more questions. Please grab a bookmark on the way out. There's a couple. They've also got a link to the site where you can get the slides too. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.